Trinity, I can't play right now. You guys can play with Trinity. All right. Keegan, are you able to turn your video on now?
Hey, buddy.
What's up, man? Good to see you.
You as well.
How are we?
Good, dude. Just got out of a team meeting, so this timing was good.
Very cool. Very cool. How's the team doing? Ready to rock and roll or what?
Yeah, just it's it's going very well.
Good
Put it
to
that way.
hear, man. Good to hear. I like that jacket too.
Thank you.
Looking sharp. Well, we're gonna dive in. We have people that are in the attendee mode that might throw some questions in here as we get rolling.
Awesome.
Let me just make sure this is recording, and it is, so we're good there. And for anybody who's watching this live or at any time, you will be able to find these ongoing recordings on our Top Producers Nation online community. I'll put the link in the chat. All you have to do is go to topproducersnation.com and you can basically join a free online community where there are shared resources, including a version of a free course to help you kind of create your what we would call your unique selling proposition, among other steps to help you become a top producer in whatever market you're working out of. And this is an ongoing series that we have been inviting top producers to join us for, where we try to dive into specific topics, best practices, of course, superpowers, some people might call them, to just, flush out some of the best ideas that are out there from the top producers that are out there to help you, no matter where you are in the country, become a top producer as well. And so today's topic with Keegan Siegfried is about mastering calendar management. So this is a cool topic. It's interesting because it's one that I think everybody has, a need for. And there's definitely a lot of different skill sets out there that people have when it comes to just their ability to master their calendar. Obviously, the busier that you get, sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming, but we're talking today to a man who I know has a lot going on. And I'm interested to hear more about what Keegan's philosophies are and some of his systems that are in place to help him build his team. Keegan, if you don't know him, is the founder of Paramount Home Group. You can Google them and find out some information about them. But Paramount is a growing, emerging team all throughout the country. They were, I believe, you started in Tampa Bay, right, Keegan? You've expanded from there.
Yep.
So, how many different markets are you guys now in?
We're in four officially. We're launching our fifth, our first in Chicago next month.
Very cool. So, just consistently growing.
Yeah.
I've known Keegan now for, I want to say, a few years. I would say. I know we met when we first started getting real producers rolling. We
Yeah.
have featured Keegan before in Tampa Bay Real Producers here in our local market, but we've also featured a lot of Keegan's team members. in different sections of our local platform, including a lot of our rising stars. So one of the things that I know Keegan does extremely well is get a lot of productivity out of his team. He's great at systems. He's organized his business in a way that's allowed him to scale. And again, today we're going to dive into more calendar management stuff. And there's really a lot of different topics that I think we can bring Keegan on to talk about. But for somebody who has a business that is doing over, I think off the top of my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, over 800 million in volume last year in sales. Is that correct?
Not over 800 million. No, no, no. We did about 250 million in sales volume, 650 units sold. Uh, we'll be we're on pace to do about 1,200 this year.
1,200 units this year.
Yeah,
Very cool. So
yeah,
that's a big number, right?
yeah.
And multiple markets are being impacted, of course, by that number. And so it obviously takes a high level of organization to try to figure out how to make that work, right?
Very much so. Very much.
Across the board. And your calendar has a big part of, that level of success. So Keegan, I'm going to open the floor up a little bit, and I don't know if you have anything that you want to share. If you do, I'm pretty sure you're allowed to present. Let me know if you need to do that. But if not, we can just have a little bit of a back and forth, and I'll give you some opportunity to kind of dig in a little bit to what you think your initial thoughts are on this topic.
Yeah, I got a couple recommendations to be honest with you. It's funny because I've taught calendar classes over the years with my team, and it's amazing. It surprised me the first time how many people actually showed up to it. It was almost like 90% of our team showed up to a calendar class training, and I was really surprised the first time. And
Yeah.
then I started to realize how many people really struggle with it. Um, and I want to say the very first thing that I highly recommend people doing, only have one calendar. Only have one calendar. When we have agents join our team, I make them sync up all their calendars, personal, professional. Have one calendar because you end up missing things when you have it in multiple places. We use our CRM calendar, so it took me about 60 days of really setting an alarm to remind me only use that calendar, and then I got in that habit. So now I use my calendar through my CRM, and I live out of there. So if you're going to use a calendar, use one and use it in your CRM. Because it's your business. If you're a full-time business owner, that's where you need to live out of.
So just to clarify, when you say
Yeah,
use one calendar, it sounds like what most people have, and myself included, is a personal calendar for certain things, obviously a business calendar,
yeah.
and then maybe other calendars too, based on the different categories and topics. But your point is just if you're going to have multiple calendars, just to categorize things, making sure that they're all visible within one calendar that you're not having to check multiple places.
Yeah, I would go a step further and fully commit, right? Like, my assistant, everything runs through her for scheduling. That.
Yeah.
And she sets my calendar, and that also allows her to we share it with my I call her my Nicole at home because my assistant's named Nicole and the lady at home is named Nicole, right?
Okay.
So that way she's got access to the same thing, and she'll throw on baby's doctor's appointments and the time off and birthdays and things like that. That way everything lives in one. I'm trying to simplify my life as much as possible, as crazy as that sounds. And if I'm living out of multiple calendars, that's just it's inefficient, and I'm setting myself up to miss something, get double booked, and ultimately disappoint somebody, right?
Okay.
And potentially even lose business. So I only work out of one calendar, personal, professional, all out of the CRM too.
And that, so your CRM, it seems like that's the master calendar.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that format of a CRM calendar versus Google Calendar, which we know is very popular? Some people
Yeah.
still love Outlook.
Yep.
What do you have opinions on what's
Yeah.
missing there, or
Yeah.
what's best or not?
I think technology has allowed them all to sync up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So anytime people send me a Google invite or Google Calendar invite, I have it synced up. We use G Suite on the back end for our emails, which then syncs up to our CRM. So I can accept it through a Google invite or Apple invite, but it always goes into the CRM. So I only want to have to check one place, right? We're between all the real estate that we're doing. Obviously we have a lot of ancillary companies as well. It's really, really, really important for me to, I call it not get system drunk,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Get system drunk.
Some other types of drunk might be okay, but yeah, system drunk, that's what's one drunk you don't really want.
No, that is correct.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more then about your system and how it's set up. So obviously you mentioned already that you have the CRM.
Yeah,
What are some other you think important elements of like mastering this calendar that are you can start very basic and work
yeah.
yourself into some stuff that's worked more detailed for you, however you want to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had an assistant that works for me for the last 7 years now. I've had an assistant, and everything runs through them. Obviously, not everybody's at a point where they're having an assistant, on staff on salary. But technology's come a long way, and AI is really powerful. And so, if you can learn to use AI with your calendar, that's basically your personal assistant, right? They just don't. The AI is not greeting the door,
Yep.
right? But yeah, I highly recommend doing that. That way, that it just it's seamless. It's seamless. It really is. I think getting a little bit deeper into the calendar, especially in our business with real estate, one of the biggest things I even coach some of my best agents on, that when they came into our building, they were already good agents. Some of them were top producers actually with the top 500, and coaching them on how to use their calendar and time block is like it sounds like such a simple thing, but it's not. It's a hurdle for some people. They don't know when to do it or how to do it. I would say it's more of a when than a how. I think people overcomplicate it. But at the end of the day, if you, again, I'm going to go back to simplifying things. What is our most productive task as real estate agents?
Sitting in front
Connecting
of
with
potential
people,
buyers
right?
or sellers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not busy with them, you need to find more of them.
Mhm.
And in order to find more of them, you need to time block that time to call them, show up to networking events. Obviously, don't show up to a realtor networking event if you're looking for clients, unless you're running a team or a brokerage. But even then, it's not something that I would recommend. But I think a lot of people miss out on just filling their calendar up, right? Like you're not going to fill your calendar up with, I got to do an MLS search today. But I've made more money at breakfast, lunch, and dinner with clients and agents and business deals because I'm willing to put those on the schedule, right? Like it's like this mental thing. I need to fill my calendar up with a lot of different people, right?
So, how are you? Obviously, we want to focus on revenue generating activities, right?
Yeah,
And when I'm hearing you, if I'm hearing you correctly, when you're calendar planning, is
yeah.
there a certain routine that you've gotten yourself into that you block off a certain time every week or every day, or um, what does that look like in terms of when you take that time to actually plan your calendar, and then what type of priorities are you putting into the calendar? Is there many? Is there a couple? How do you view that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the time and prioritizing, um, I, for me personally, I run a lot of businesses, obviously all tied to real estate. I have a lot of leaders that I lead, and so meeting with them, whether it's in groups or one-on-ones on a weekly cadence, is really important. So I have to touch my leaders at least once a week. So having that cadence, so they know it's the same time, I know it's the same time. Showing up, that's really important. So that's there. I personally find a lot of production with my day in the beginning of the day. I've become an early riser since having a kid, so I
It'll
know
do
you
that
know
for
the
you.
feeling. But I find a lot of work gets done in the morning before all the fires happen, before too many bullets start flying, so to speak. And if you're a realtor, clients aren't typically hitting you up before 8 or 9. So if you can, alter your schedule to where you can start to be productive, even organizing yourself from 7 to 9, that's a big win, right? I think at the end of the day, trying to do that, depending on the type of person you are, it's a lot at the end of the day, right?
So that sounds like when you say you're organizing your calendar, say in the morning time, are you talking about for that day or the next day? Do you have like a 24-hour focus? What does that look like?
Yeah, honestly, I'm reviewing my calendar on Sundays for the week.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously at night before I go to bed, it took me setting an alarm for 60 days to create the habit. But now every time right before I put my phone down, it's I have to I'm seeing what I got tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? We're human. We're gonna miss stuff. It happened to me on Sunday. I flew in late from New York City this past Sunday, and I woke up getting ready to go, to my normal leadership training program that I run for a couple leaders in training on my team. They're actually the ones that I help plant into different markets too,
Yeah.
so they can run their own team. But I'm getting ready to do it, and Nicole at home, she goes, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to going there." I had my daughter's 3-year-old doctor appointment Monday morning at the same time. Didn't realize that it was canceled, so I was so used to being in that routine. And the one time I don't check it is when I mess up, and those are the constant. I shouldn't say constant, but those are the reminders when those do happen. It's like, yep, I need to make sure I check my schedule every time because that's what happens when you don't.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I find it interesting. Like sometimes people get good or at least decent at like short term planning of their calendar, where it might be a weekly thing. You said, like, I do a similar thing on Sunday nights where I have a time set aside where I actually look at the next 7 days and try to make sure my priorities being prioritized
Yeah,
in my calendar, and then have like a routine where it's day to day, whether that's before you go to bed at night or first thing in the morning, where there's like that extra check in on the calendar and making sure that you're asking yourself certain questions. We're going to dig into maybe at least what I think some of those questions could be. But I think
yeah,
where a lot of people, in my experience anyway, fall short is more of the bigger picture planning that can also happen with calendar management, whether that's month to month, or especially like year to year.
yeah,
And so I was curious because I know you're a big thinker and you
yeah.
definitely have like long term goals for your organizations. So I'd like you to elaborate, if you could, a little bit on how you view that type of calendar management, like bigger picture, bigger dominoes that you're trying to knock down. How much time do you block off to invest on like, year to year planning and even
Yeah.
5 year plans and stuff of that nature? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last couple of years, we've gotten really good at that. I know at the beginning of each year, there's certain things on our calendar that are already there, right? Because we planned it, back in October or November the year before. We know when, the client appreciation stuff is going to be. We know when the realtor events are going to be, unless, obviously there's some that always come up, but like we really do set aside things like that, so that way we can expect it. Always having client birthdays on there is a big one. I think knowing what events that you're going to attend as soon as they roll out, like it's April and I just booked an event for October I got to go to, right? So like I think, and they're big events too, right? For me and the type of business I'm in, running a national team at this point, those tend to get booked a little earlier on. Um, as far as like 5 years out, no, I can't even. I know what the 5 year vision is, but like, the vision's clear, but I don't know what I'm doing in 2030. You
It's
know,
not on the calendar yet, huh?
yeah, it's not on the calendar yet. But definitely, like I know what I'm doing later on down the year,
Right.
right? It's really important to me, that the bigger picture stuff, and typically it revolves around conferences. For instance, the Tampa Bay Real Producers Elite Mastermind, right? That's as soon as we got confirmed for it, it's on the schedule for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Right? And I think making that a priority versus just saying, okay, each time you're going to put it on there for the next month, that's when things slip through the cracks.
Yeah, one of my mentors taught me this a while back, and it's always kind of stuck with me. It's this idea that um, every year in our calendar deserves a weekend in terms of actual planning time and blocking that off. And
Yeah,
then every month in our calendar deserves a day, and then every week in our calendar deserves, I think it's an hour. I'm going to probably butcher this, but that was kind of the mindset, right? And then each day at least deserves 5 to 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of that chunking down thought process of, depending on that scope of time that you're trying to literally time block for, um, are you building the habits necessary to actually like make that and be disciplined about it, right?
Yeah.
And then once that time is there, and that ironically that time really needs to be blocked off in the calendar for it to actually be done. At least that's what I found. I think most people agree with that. So then it boils down to like, so what do you actually do during that planning time? What questions do you ask yourself? What stimulates your creativity so that you get the answers and the things you're looking for, right? In that planning time. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you have to understand what your priorities are and what your goals are, right? So for me, expansion has been a big one, right? That's been a really, really, really big one. So making sure that I schedule things out for instance, talking with a Chicago real producers, right? That's something like that is really important. Understanding your priorities and what you're working towards, and we're all different, right? Your priorities are going to look different than mine, and different than a top 500 agent or a brand new agent. So it's tough. I think what keeps you going, right? What's going to keep you operating at the highest level? And so, like my first thought goes to the personal side of things, right? I'm a big date night guy. So I want to go on, I want to make sure me and the lady have a date night at least once every other week. That's planned, pre-planned as far out as we possibly can. Make sure we get the babysitter, right? Vacations is another one. I can't stress this enough to anybody that ever watches this video. If you do not have a vacation on the books, you are not going to feel like you're working towards you're like you don't have something to look forward to.
Yeah,
And that was something
I
that really
completely agree
stuck
with
with
that.
me. A friend of mine, he's he's my age, but he's been in wealth management for a while. And we were sitting there after golf, he's having a beer, and he's like, "So when's your next vacation?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't have one planned." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Dude, you have to make sure you have a vacation planned at all times,
Yep.
right?" And so typically we have two booked out, right? And so I got one coming up next month, a month from tomorrow, actually, and it's a awesome one that I'm looking forward to. It's the family's looking forward to, but it's been on the books for probably, I don't know, 90, 120 days, and I can tell you, because it's on the books, I have something to look forward to. I always know that my grind goes up another notch. Somehow I didn't know there was a different level I could hit, but it lets me know, hey, there's going to be a time where I can take a breath, but that's not right now. It's then down the road.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I appreciate you bringing that up. It's something that I also learned a while back, is the importance of having things to look forward to in your calendar, so you don't feel like you're in a routine that becomes mundane.
Yeah.
Really critical. We try to do I have a pretty big size family. So I think even in my situation, having that time, and as the kids get older, there's all these other events that can easily take them and get them focused on their own worlds of dance and baseball and everything else that we have going on with our church, et cetera. Um, and so having that time where the family is forced to actually spend that time together and come together and do cool stuff and create, I'm a big believer in creating experiences. That ultimately is not going to happen without some sort of a systematic planning in place. So we try to do literally one every quarter, and we have them in our calendar to start the year. And it's definitely been a game changer for building those connections. So I agree a lot with that. Um, you mentioned a few different like priorities, you would say. So you mentioned the personal priority with your date nights. Obviously, we just talked about family and vacation time.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned the concept of um, as an agent, making sure your revenue generating activities, meeting with listing appointments and buyers, that's actually prioritized, right, in your calendar. So in your mind, what does that order of priority look like for you when you sit and you actually plan your calendar out? Is it always revenue generating activity first? Is it personal time first? What does it look like for you?
It's probably a mix of both. I mean, my mind it's been so business focused for my entire adult life now. I mean, like I said, you and I have talked. I've been in this. I'm on my 13th year, right? So I've been in it since I've been 22, and so this is just the way my brain has been trained. I've been brought up. So a lot of it's business first. What are my revenue generating tasks? And the stuff that makes the most amount of sense, we'll call it, dollars and cents. Those are the things I focus on. And more often than not, these days, it's more relationship based than anything else. Just like it's probably say the same thing for agents too, right? Agents are finding new relationships, because they're constantly hunting for more business, new business, or at least they should be. So they got a time block, go find new relationships, people that are going to buy and sell real estate or refer them real estate. You know, I think the same applies for anybody. But yeah, definitely business focused on the revenue generating activities.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I've seen different opinions on how they want to prioritize those things, right? For some people, it's I am going to protect my personal family time above everything, right? So that's the first thing that goes into their calendar. But I'm reminded of the old analogy. I'm sure you've heard this story before of the teacher, right, that goes into the classroom and he's got a bunch of rocks in a jar, right? And he says to his class, is there anything, can I fit anything else in the jar? And they all say no, right? And then he takes out like a bag of sand and he pours the sand into the jar and he goes, can I fit anything more now into the jar? And the class is kind of like, well, maybe, right? So he then grabs a bucket of water and he pours
Yep.
water into there, right? And obviously the point is that if you don't put your big rocks in first, they'll never fit into the plan.
Yeah.
And you do have to identify like what are the big rocks in your
Yep.
life and in your business. I'm assuming since our audience is pretty much real estate agents, then revenue generating activities for real estate agents would probably be a big rock.
Yep.
But if I'm assuming many of you also value your family time and want to prioritize that. So that would also be considered a big rock. But you have to identify first, like, what are those big rocks? Because then a lot of the little things that we all know come up sometimes day to day, week to week, they're going to have to, like, there's going to be room for them, right? As you put them into your schedule, but they're never like replacing or sacrificing the big rocks that have already been placed, right? And that to me is a discipline that I think at least helped me for many years in thinking through how I want to plan out the most important parts of my calendar.
Yeah.
Um,
On that point, I think, you mentioned like things are going to happen and come up, and that's why those big rocks, typically, you got to knock those out before the bullets start flying again, right? That's why I say like, you know, um, if you're a late night person, schedule texts to go out the next day to the people that you need to send texts to, right? So that way you're not blowing them up at 6 a.m. when you're thinking about it, right? Or at 6 a.m. You're obviously not making phone calls, but you can schedule texts to go out at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whenever it might be. I think technology has come a long way to where you could actually knock out a lot of your follow up, a lot of your reach out, a lot of the things that make you money, and you can schedule it out to where you don't have to do it later; it just does it for you.
Yeah, for sure. That's about leveraging technology without a doubt. And there are so many different great programs and CRMs, and even with AI nowadays that can help with all of that.
Oh
There is
yeah.
a learning curve required, to be able to do it, or have an investment required to find a team of people that can do it for you, right, and put it into place. But I agree. We want to make sure we're leveraging technology as much as possible, which is really important if you want to create the lifestyle that you probably became an agent for to begin with.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why we do this, right?
That's absolutely, that makes sense. That's actually our fourth step in our kind of process, our framework for within our community as well. So I agree with that. Um, I wanted to touch on again real quick, like we mentioned earlier, the idea of questions and things that you might ask yourself when you're sitting into your blocked off planning time. And I'm going to just share one, and you can elaborate on anything you might do as well. But I know for me, one of the things that I feel like I've done well has been my weekly planning time. Allocating that Sunday nights is usually when I do it. Occasionally, it'll even be like a Saturday morning if I wake up earlier before the family time gets crazy. But I always ask myself these three questions, and it gets my mindset and my creativity in the right place. And the first question is simply, what went well this week? Right. So I can document what are my gains, what are the wins that were created this week? What big priority did I make a lot of progress on? Whatever it is that I can identify, personal and professional, what went well. And then, of course, that leads to the second question, which is, what went wrong,
Yeah.
right? Most of the time, there's always something that doesn't work out right, right? My plan fell through. I didn't hit a goal that I thought I was going to hit. Somebody, backed out of a commitment, whatever it might have been. I want to actually think, though, like what went wrong this week? And then the third question, which is really what has helped me be, I think, more innovative, is what adjustments do I need to make next week? What adjustments do I need to make for the next cycle? Obviously, this could be you can take whatever time frame you want, whether that's monthly, yearly, as you ask these questions. But for me, it's been more of a weekly cadence of what went well, what didn't go well, what went wrong, and what adjustments can I make to for the next 7 days. I just wanted to share that because I feel like that could be helpful for people as you're thinking about blocking time off, especially if this is a new discipline. But I know for me, when I was kind of many times newer at calendar management, I would have something blocked off on my calendar, and it would be like, all right, I'd sit in front of my computer and I'd be like, this time is blocked off for calendar management. And then I wouldn't exactly know exactly what I wanted to do or what questions, like what I was asking myself to get movement. And so having a framework in place can really make an impact there.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you go back to the rocks, right? What are your rocks? Anytime that you're struggling at that point, you feel like a little lost, or you feel like you haven't been as productive lately, like get back to the rocks, right? And then plan around that.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And by the way, if you're listening in and you wanted to throw any questions in the chat, feel free to do that. And we can throw a few at Keegan before we wrap up here. And obviously, like I said, this is going to be recorded.
Yeah.
Um, what other priorities do you feel like are important in regards to calendar management? Whether these are quick hacks, tricks that people need to be thinking about, things to put into place. What are the thoughts come to mind?
Yeah, I think the quick hacks thing, I think you said it best. Like this is not rocket science by any means. Like there is nothing that I could share that is going to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a game changer." I think it comes down to the discipline of it and the habit of it, and I think setting an alarm every night before you go to bed, check my calendar, and then every morning when you wake up, or having two alarms, one for you to wake up and one for you to check your calendar again, right? Like I think those are big things. And typically when you do that, you're also finding the holes or things that you might want to add or change. You know what I mean? It helps you prep mentally a little bit more. Also probably helps you sleep better too, right?
Sure.
You ever sit there and like, gosh, what do I do tomorrow? Like, what do I have going on? Or you got to brain dump a little bit. And I think it's a discipline thing. And that's where people fail the most, right?
Well, that's very true.
Yeah.
Lack of discipline is a whole other call in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
it had why that's a critical trait.
Yeah.
Valerie does ask in the chat, what do you use to set up multiple alarms for the week? Her iPhone, which might be the case for every iPhone user, only lets me do it for the day.
Yeah.
Do you
You
have
can
any
have it on
other
repeat. Yeah. Your iPhone should be able to have it on repeat.
repeat? Okay, so
Yeah. It
basically
should.
just setting
Yeah.
up the
Daily.
daily alarm as an ongoing, a daily recurrence or a weekly recurrence, right?
Yep. Yeah. I would do it daily. right? That really just gets you in the habit. Gets you in the habit for
Yep.
sure.
Makes
Habit
sense.
creation takes 60 to 90 days, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yep. So just utilizing the technology to make it recurring. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else that you think we haven't hit on yet regarding this topic that you think is important?
Not really. I mean, this one is it seems like I said, it seems like such a steep mountain to climb. I think people struggle with what do I put on my calendar? I think that like when I hold classes on our team around calendar building, I find myself helping them build out their calendar on when they should time block, who they should like if we're setting up time, okay, 2 hours, I'm gonna make phone calls. Then the other step is like it's like analysis paralysis. It's like, well, who do I call? Right. So it's like, okay, well, now I'm gonna time block to set up to 30 minutes or 15 minutes so I can build out the list on who to call
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. Right. So now because I'm time blocking 2 hours tomorrow, I need to make sure I set aside 15 minutes to set up the list for it, right? So you got to get prepared to do it. So I think just not having analysis paralysis is a big one, right?
Yeah, and it's funny when you start the time blocking process, it's about really building momentum a lot of times.
Yeah.
And once you start building that momentum, your brain starts to come up with the things that you need to get accomplished in each one of those sessions. Like you just said, if you have time allocated to call people, but you haven't had a clean list of how to call people, well, it just logically takes you to that next step of, all right, I need to allocate an additional hour to get that part of it done. And then you keep refining that, day in and day out. So it makes a lot of sense there. And it's funny. Calendar management is not one of those sexy topics that is like requires a PhD to be able to master. But man, I've never met a wildly successful business person who's not on top of their calendar.
Yeah.
And I've seen many people who, because they're not on top of their calendar, it actually completely ruins their ability to be successful.
Every
So
single
it's such a
time.
critical component.
Oh yeah, Don. Every single time that I tell somebody that I can do something, or oh yeah, 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 that sounds good to me. Let's do it. Without looking at my calendar, I always end up double booked, and I'm always disappointing somebody. So like that habit of just before I say anything, let me check my calendar, or I'm going to put you with my assistant. That's it, right?
Right.
Like that habit is so important.
Yeah, and I remember for many years when I was mostly in my sales career, I was using one of those like weekly day minder, like actual physical calendars that I would write out, and I liked the
Hey,
visual component of that, but that there was obviously limitations to that, right?
yeah,
And then converting everything to Google Calendar, which we also use a CRM now that syncs to our Google Calendar, but being able to have that on our phones literally at our disposal at any given time is really truly a game changer. And there is many tutorials out there about how to maximize whatever software you're actually using, which we haven't spent really time on this call doing. But if you're
yeah.
a Google Calendar person, there's a lot of features within Google Calendar that you probably aren't even aware of, right? Or using effectively, that would make some sense to do some simple YouTube searches on. And you might blow your mind on stuff that your calendar could be doing for you that you're not even aware of at all. And obviously, CRMs also have the same capabilities. So that would be one last thing I would want to leave you with, is making sure that you're allowing yourself some time to maximize the power of whatever calendar software you're a fan of, because most people probably don't. They use the bare bones basic version, which is fine, but they could be making their life a lot easier if they actually educate themselves on what's possible.
Yeah, I think, hitting that home, making your life easier, take out the guesswork of what you're going to do that day. That's what the calendar's for. Take out the guesswork and it feels less stressful as well,
Yeah.
right?
And like you said earlier, like especially within Google Calendar, just the basics of using the recurrences properly
Yeah.
saves immense amount of time. It's crazy how much that do. Because think about how many habits we develop or disciplines we should be doing should be happening each and every single week in our life. You only got to put it in your calendar once, click the recurring button properly, set it up the right way, and all of a sudden, boom, it's there every single week as an ongoing discipline, right? And that's the beauty behind that.
Yep.
Um, cool, bro. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to hit on before we jump?
No, man. Honestly, like I always enjoy talking with you. It's. I know this one feels a little base level. It's a simple conversation, but oh so hard for most people. But I always enjoy talking with you. I know other topics we can go pretty deep. You and I have gone many times before, so look
Yeah.
forward to the next one, man.
Well, something tells me you'll be on these calls again for various topics for sure. Do you
Happy
have
to
any
help anytime, man.
resources, Keegan, that you want to throw out there that for people who might want to get a little deeper in this
Yeah.
topic of calendar management, has anything come to mind that you can refer people to?
Yeah, I mean, so we use Follow Up Boss for our CRM. I know everybody's got different ones. That one connects with Google. I think most CRMs do at this point.
Yep.
But we did just roll something out to the team today, actually. It's called House Whisper. It's an AI assistant that can listen to your calls through the CRM. And as you're talking to your client, like, oh yeah, I'll go ahead and schedule that property for 4 o'clock tomorrow. It literally will set the appointment for 4 o'clock tomorrow and send the client a confirmation for 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Nice.
Right. And it'll remind you to go ahead to make sure that you get the appointment set with the listing agent before the end of the day.
Nice.
Like there's the tech is pretty wild,
Yeah.
right?
It's called, so that's House Whisperer. Is that correct?
House Whisperer. Yep.
Cool. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a nugget right there to help some people out because the technology is never ending. So if you can find the right
Never.
little things that are going to make your life that much easier, that's really what this is all about.
Yeah. Facts.
All right, Keegan.
All
You
right,
have a
bud.
great rest of your day, my man. I'll see you at our next function together, which I know is coming up within the next month. So we'll see each other
All
soon.
right. Sounds good, bud. See you then.
Later, brother.